I'm Wendy Desiree from St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I currently live in Miami or wherever my passport lands me. I love supporting others in learning how to live their best lives.
I'm Derek Lumpkins, a Boston-born globetrotter and photographer with the soul of a polyglot.
As lifelong friends, we're constantly talking about history, the arts, missed opportunities, and the road less traveled.
Welcome to Things They Don't Teach Us,
a podcast about life's tips, tricks, and insights. Hey. Where are you these days, Derek?
I'm out and about. I am in Spain right now.
Okay.
And what about you?
Cryptic. Okay.
What? It's a place.
I'm in not so sunny Miami today still. I've got one foot out the door because I'm heading to Paris to visit my family in about 5 days. So I will be on the road soon.
Nice.
Maybe we should do something when I'm in Paris, and the background is the Eiffel Tower.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if I have the budget for that right now.
Well, I said the background, meaning that you're gonna be where you are, I'll be where I am.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Well, speaking of, as we mentioned, money, today's topic is one that should be near and dear to everyone's heart. It's about budgeting. Mm-hmm. And budgeting is something that's personal to a lot of people, and some people don't even know about it or the concept of it. They understand it fundamentally, but how to do it. I can speak for myself when I say that as the child of immigrant parents, budgeting was not something we discussed. Money was not something we discussed. I can't remember a single time my mother sat me down and went, I'm making X amount of dollars, we're spending X amount of dollars, and we're meeting here. I actually learned about finance and the basics of budgeting in a home ec class in middle school. And then in high school, they went into more depth about it. But it was not something that was talked about in my family. It's not something we discussed. We still don't talk about it. And when you bring it up, it's like, no, we're not talking about these things. What about you? How was your first introduction to budgeting?
So it's interesting because you said as a child of immigrant parents, you didn't talk about money, you didn't talk about budgeting, but I don't think that was something limited to immigrant families because my family didn't really talk about money either. And I don't really think that most of my friends and their families talked about money either. Just growing up in New England, maybe I don't know if maybe that's a gross overstatement to say that it's a New England thing, but just growing up where I lived in my part of Boston, talking about money, actually, yeah, maybe it is kind of a Massachusetts thing or a New England thing. Talking about money was considered to be a little bit impolite.
Yes.
You just didn't talk about that. It didn't matter where you were on the economic ladder because I knew people who came from wealthier backgrounds and less wealthy backgrounds. People just didn't talk about money. But I do remember I was very young. I was maybe 6, 7, or 8 years old, somewhere around there. Do you remember when you could buy paper, like graph paper? With the lines up and down and across. Yeah. I remember looking at my mom using some graph paper, and I saw all these numbers. I'm like, what is that? I think it was shortly after I had learned to read, and then I learned numbers, and I was like, oh, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm doing a budget. I'm like, well, what do these numbers mean? And even then, she wouldn't really go into the details. She would sort of explain, this is the money that comes in, and this is the money that we have to pay for things. And I, with my mind, was like, oh, tell me more. What are these numbers? She's like, let me get you your own piece of paper and then explain to you, which, of course, for a kid is probably appropriate, like, how this works. But, we never really talked about like the specifics of what was happening in our household. So, she showed me a very basic budgeting formula or format, which I carried with me through probably a good portion of my childhood. Up until I got my first jobs. And then when I started getting more money, I'm like, well, these numbers on both sides are bigger. Like the income is bigger, but so are the expenses. Yeah. So I had to be like, okay, well, how do I recalibrate for this? But learning that it was very basic. But then as I started doing more in my life, making investments and doing other things, I was like, the budgets are becoming more complicated. The accounting is becoming more complicated. And so I was like, okay, I need to start learning how to do this better. And as I join boards and join organizations, and they show like corporate budgets or nonprofit budgets, organizational budgets, then you could really see how complicated, how complex they were. So it's something that, yeah, where a lot of people just aren't taught, and we're not taught the different variations of budgets there are too.
Or even just not understand budgeting. I mean, we all know that person that always complains they have no money, but then they're on a trip here, a trip there, they're buying something new, they've got a car they really shouldn't have.
I
Dare
feel
I,
like you're describing me.
yeah, dare I say even pets? I mean, pets are not a necessity in life and they cost a lot. The
A lot.
numbers, I hear a friend's dog just went to surgery. She just spent $7,000. I, and I don't get me wrong, I get it. I totally get it. That's your baby. I get that. But she complains about money too. So,
I mean, everybody complains about money at some point. Even the government
oh,
complains about money at some point.
yeah.
But we
Well,
have someone who can help us figure this out.
yes, today's guest is Dr. Sandrine. And Dr. Sandrine, I'll read her bio briefly. Dr. Sandrine is a finance professor in Miami who grew up in Cameroon, where she learned firsthand what it means to dream big on a small budget. Don't we all? With multiple degrees, including a doctorate in finance, she brings both expertise and lived experience. She's passionate about making financial literacy accessible, especially when it comes to helping people turn their travel dreams into reality. Please welcome Dr. Sandrine.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
For joining
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah, I think money and budgeting is something people don't talk about, and it's the Achilles heel of a lot of people. Um, because we all find that money is how you don't have to like and love money, but it's how we move forward in the world.
I
Well,
absolutely agree. We don't talk enough about it, and yet everybody's making a financial decision every single day.
Yep.
so can we hear about your first introduction to budgeting?
Well, what can I say? I think I've always loved money. And growing up with a very humble background, money was something that you had to think about it all the time because, there wasn't enough of it. There was never enough of it. And so I realized very early on that I had this knack of keeping track of every dime that I own. And I mean, it's like I knew exactly how much money I had, what I spent it on, where it went. And at any given moment, if I hold my purse and you ask me how much money you have in this purse, I would be able to tell you exactly how much money should be in that purse because I could go back in my mind and see exactly
Wow.
what came in and when and what went out. So I guess you could say that I've always had this strong interest in finance and keeping track of my money. And as I moved to America, it just became even more important to do that because you got here then and suddenly you have all these credits that are available to you and you are not making enough money but everybody wants to lend you money and
Mhm.
suddenly you have to be even more diligent about saying, okay, do I really need to buy this or do I need to be spending this? And so it just became more of a passion. And of
Mhm.
course I'm fascinated with companies and entrepreneurs, and so that also fostered my interest into corporate finance, and I went to school for it and now I teach it. So, and sometimes I can be a bit of a pain with my friends because I'm always the person saying, how's your finances these days?
We
What's
all
the
need friends like
response?
that.
Yeah. Hopefully they're giving you a good response when you ask
You're
that
right.
question.
Well, people are very sensitive about their finance, right? So it is
Mhm.
such a sensitive topic, which is so unfortunate from my perspective because a lot of people are making a lot of poor decisions when it comes to finances because they don't have the education, but they are too embarrassed to seek out the education or the information. So it's very sad. So the people that I care about, I will bring up the topic. I just figure out how to do it in a safe and sensitive way. And I'm very patient because sometimes when you bring it out the first time, especially coming back to what you were saying, for example, Wendy, we always have these friends who are always complaining that they don't have money. But then they are spending things. And me, as I said, I'm very good at keeping track of the money in my head, even when it's not my money. So I start thinking, you can afford that, even if they think they can. So if I care about you, at some point, I'm going to be like, how is your finances? Because I feel like maybe, I'm always doing the math in my head. It's a professional hazard. But then
Mhm.
I'll be patient. If they don't respond well, I'll be like, I care about you. I just want to help. If there's any questions or something you want to go over, um, let's talk about it. Another thing that I did is like I built this small financial, personal financial model budget thing, and I'm always sharing it around to everybody. I'm like, hey, by the way, do you know how to plan your expenses? Or do you know how to plan? Are you saving enough for retirement? If you want, I have this template that I build. You can customize. I'll just send it to you. And if you have any question using it, just let me know.
So, I mean, let's take a step back. Define as a very, because the part of this thing, this topic is things they don't teach us. And because no one ever explains budgeting, we think we know what it is. Define for us what a budget is.
Fundamentally, a
Mhm.
budget, it's about priority. It's about a simple way to plan your money so that it reflects the things that matter to you.
Mhm.
That's fundamentally what it is. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that there are things you want to achieve in life. First of all, we want to live, which means we want to have a house, we want to be able to eat, we want to go to school or send our children to school. Those are things that matters to us. Some of us love to travel,
Mhm.
and there are other things we want to do. We want to be able to, take our nieces and nephews and mothers and daughters to dinner, give them birthday gifts, do things nice for the people that we care about. It doesn't matter what your priority are. We even want to have pets or not have pets. We want to have a flower sent to us every day. These are little things, everything that matters to us. It doesn't matter what it is. But the problem is that you need money to achieve those things. And so budgeting is about what is important to me and how do I make sure that my limited resources, my financial limited resources, and by limited, I don't mean poor. Every resource is limited. I mean, even if you talk to Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, they'll tell you they don't have enough money for all the big dreams that they have, right? Like
Mm.
money is not an unlimited supply. Now, maybe when you get to that level, you have more of it than the rest of us. But for most of us, money is a very limited resource and it cannot help us achieve everything that we want to do. Budgeting is about setting those priorities and making sure that the money that we have is helping us achieve those things. So, in order to start budgeting, there has to be some kind of mindset shift, which is very fundamental to the ability to not only budget but stick to your budget, right? And I like to say that there's two main mindset that has a shift that has to occur. The first thing is that we have to be comfortable with the notion of trade-off. Life is about trade-off.
Mm.
And there is no such things as having it all. You can have everything you want, not at the same time. For most of us, we have to wait. We have to give up something today so that we can have something else, right? And like I always like to say to my kids and to my young friends is that a decision is not between something you want and something you don't want. If you were deciding between something you want and something you don't want, there is no decision. A decision is between something you want and something you want, and you have to decide what you want more. And that's what budget helps you clarify. Once you understand that there is trade-off, then you decide, okay,
Mm.
what is important? Where do I want to send my money first? And then you clarify that. And then if there's something left over, you can put it towards other things. Right. So the first mindset shift is understanding that there's trade-off, and trade-off helps you understand priorities. The second mindset shift, which is very important, especially when your income is much more limited, is that you need to start having this mindset of only spending money that you have. Now, it's very challenging in a country like America where credit is so
Mhm,
accessible, and
mhm.
are spending money they don't have without an understanding of how they're going to repay that money.
Oh, yes.
If you can incorporate the mindset that, okay, I'm only going to spend money that I have, then it makes your budgeting journey a lot simpler because now you understand the concept of saving and before you spend, right? So trade-off allows you to understand priorities, which helps you define where you want your money to go first. And having the mindset, I'm only going to spend what I have, helps make saving easier for you. And those two are very fundamental to the ability not only to set a realistic budget, but also to stick to it.
So I want to just jump on one piece about mindset. 'Cause I love the idea. I always love talking about mindset and changing mindsets. And we started off, Wendy and I started off talking about how our families did not talk about money. So I'll speak for myself. I didn't inherit the idea of talking about money, and which would put me in a certain mindset to think about saving and spending and credit in the way in which you're describing.
Mhm, mhm.
So in what ways, so when you're talking to whether it's your children or your students or whoever, how do you even broach the conversation to begin putting them in the mindset? So I guess basically I'm asking, how do you break the pattern of not talking about money within your family?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, talking about money is easy in a family. You just have to do it because everything is about money. The first thing is learning how to bring the children in the conversation. I'm not talking about telling them about all the financial problem of the family, but there's so many opportunities to talk to children about money. So, and regarding trade-off, I always introduce the concept of trade-off to my children very, very early on. And we do it with other things. And as they can understand, we can do it about money. And the trade-off is very simple. Okay, we are in the grocery store and you want a candy, you can either have M&M or you can have, I don't know, Oreo cookies. You can have both. You have to choose because it's about trade-off. That is a simple way. And then when it comes to money, you said, I understand this is what you want for Christmas, but this is the budget that I have set for your Christmas. You can spend it whichever way you want, but that's the budget. So you're going to have to decide, what do you really want? Already we are telling children that money is not unlimited. And more importantly, we're telling them, money doesn't come from a plastic because a lot of young kids think that money comes from a plastic and they
Mhm.
don't realize that you have to pay that plastic back, It's which is probably why a lot of young adults get into debt without understanding what a credit card is and then paying, right? So early on, I always told my children, okay, this is your budget. This is what you have. You can spend it as you want. When I was giving my children allowance, I gave them progressively, but you can start with like a weekly allowance and then a bi-weekly and then turn it into a monthly. The reason you want to do that is because you want to teach them to use and make the money last. So if you're giving them an allowance every other day, they don't know how to manage it. Oh, when you give a teenager an allowance for a month, and the first time that money ends at the middle of the world, at the middle of the month, you're like, yes, an opportunity to teach them about budgeting because now they've run out of the money and they're coming back to you. And now, as a parent, you'll be like, okay, there are things that I'm probably going to have to chip in because it's important. But then there are things that you will not. And those things will hurt. Like the plans they had to go to the movie theater with their friend. You'd be like, well, you had the money for the month. You should have planned better. I
Mhm.
saw you doing that things 2 weeks ago. I didn't feel like you needed. Maybe if you had saved a little bit out of it and bought this thing instead, you would have been able to have the money left over to go to the movie theater with your friends. You ran out of your money. You're just going to have to do what the rest of us do. If I run out of money like that, we will be evicted from our house. So can you imagine how consequently that would be? So next month, I suggest you do better with your money. And if you need help, help me and be like, well, can you give me my money every week? No, you have to learn to stretch your money over the month. So
But I guess that would imply that the parents now have to hold a hard line and not give in when, your little one's looking up at you like, please, please, please. So
Yes,
that's,
yes. And that is,
yeah,
yeah. That is one of the most challenging thing, and that is unfortunate. A lot of kids don't learn things because we, the parents, are managing our discomfort rather than what is best for the kids. Because when my son is crying to me, it hurts. I want to see my son happy, but I always say to parents, that's your feeling. Do what's best for the child, and then go
yeah,
to therapy to suit your feeling, but do not do things to make you feel better that are not necessarily great for the child. But I
yeah,
also feel that any parents who's worried about teaching financial um, literacy to their children will probably be okay understanding that sometimes I have to practice tough love
yeah.
because otherwise the child will not learn, right? So when it comes to savings, one other thing that I did with my children, especially as they went to college, is that I introduced the notion of saving. So I have the conversation. I said, okay, this is your monthly allowance, and I'm going to add $50 to it. And that $50 for you to save. And you have to save that every time because it's about the habit and understanding the saving and seeing that money grow. And so I started, instead of, I started adding some money on top of what they would have with the
Mm.
understanding that it's safe, help them have savings account. We set savings goals, and then I opened a brokerage account for them as well. And for me, it was about teaching them the habit of saving. So
Oh,
those are some of the ways that I did to help my children. So as soon as they turned 18, because I didn't want to do it before they were 18 because I didn't want to deal with a custodian account. But as soon as they turn 18, we sit down, opens accounts. When before they turn 18, they had savings accounts. And so
mhm.
I would just encourage them. And of course, especially the savings ones I join, and just making sure that they are following through. And so it becomes a habit. And they develop that habit. So these are some of the ways and some of the things that parents can do to introduce and foster that mindset with the children.
Okay, so now we've gone through parents. So now we're 20-something-year-old. We fall into the credit card trap that they do in university because they are out there. At least when I went to school, they were outside, literally outside the gates, passing off the flyers, telling you to sign up for credit cards. So now I'm a 20-something-year-old. I've got my money. I've got a decent paying job, but I fall into the trap. What are your suggestions for me to get out of that trap?
That's a very interesting to say. And a lot of people find themselves that way. If you are there and you even have never made a budget before, then the first thing you need to start is to take a realistic look at your spending, your income and spending. And
Mhm.
having this budget is going to help. I don't know if you can put on the screen an example of a budget that is actually describing the situation that you just mentioned, Wendy. So what we are seeing here is somebody who's in debt, right? So this is a simple budgeting. It's just tracking how much money is coming in and how much money am I spending or saving. And the bottom line is red, meaning that we are about $11,400 into debt or about to go into debt if we spend the money the way we have spent. Now,
Mhm.
if this is where you find yourself, having something like this, it's a good start, right? You want to know, where am I? And having this budget is going to help you see where your money is going. How much money am I realistic coming in? Now, you also want to be careful that you account for everything that is taking away your money. Some problems, for example, that people do when they're thinking about their income is that they think about their gross income, not necessarily their disposable income.
Uh,
Between your gross paycheck and how much goes into your bank account, there is a lot of difference.
True.
At the very least, there are taxes, right? So, and people don't sometimes foster those taxes in when they are planning their spending. And so they pay taxes, and at the end of the year, they have this deficit. Another thing is, like, I like you to do your budgeting or your planning on an annual level. you can break it down by month, right? So usually you can have a column for the year and then you have monthly column. The reason I want you to think about it on an annual level is because not every expenses are monthly expenses, right? Sometimes we forget. If you are in January and you're thinking about your budget on a monthly basis, you are going to focus on the expenses from January or February because they are just more closely to your mind, right? The recency bias. You're going to forget about your car insurance that's due in June. And you're going to plan your monthly spending as if you didn't have to pay. But when you do it on an annual basis, it forces you to think about everything you are spending in a year. Like I said, you spend your whole money on a year on the paper before you actually spend it.
Okay.
Now, once you have listed out those things, that budget list is going to be listing out your expenses. You want to track, where is my money going? This is the time to be very brutally honest with yourself. To not be, you know, open your credit card statements, open your bank statements, and see how much money you are spending. Not how much you wish you were spending or how much you think you are spending, but how much money are you actually spending? And if you are very much into debt, then be as detailed as possible. Now, it is a lot of work, but at the same time, this might be like 5 hours or 6 hours of work, right? We always have to put things in perspective. This is 5 or 6 hours of work that can help you get out of debt. So this is a really great investment of your time, because the more detailed you are, the easier it is for you to see where your money is going. Now, once you see where your money is going, then coming back to the priority and the trade-off mindset, you can start asking yourself, what do I really need? What do I don't want to spend money on? And what can I adjust? But until you see it, your mind isn't even thinking about it necessarily. So you're not even planning for it just because it's not crossing your mind. So you need to list that down and then decide if you have this, if you've accepted that things are trade-off, then you may realize that, okay, maybe instead of spending money on buying coffee every day because I didn't realize that I was spending $300 on coffee a month, maybe I can buy a good coffee machine and start making coffee at home. And that $300 a month, once you have a budget, because the good thing about having a budget on paper is that as soon as you say that and then you turn that coffee into zero, you see how your debt goes down. Like you literally see it. And that is very empowering because suddenly you feel like you have a bit more control over your life, right? The other thing is that if you already have debt, you need to take a close look at your credit card statement, because if you're having consumer debt, it's probably on your credit card. And you need to find out exactly how much money are you paying in interest and are you paying. If you've ever been late once, you might be paying 30% on interest and not even realizing it. And because they don't send out those paper statements anymore, a lot of people have had credit cards for many years without having actually ever looked even once at a credit card statement. The first time my son had a credit card when he was old enough, I made him print out the credit card statement, sit down and read it, because I'm like, you need to understand what you are going and know all the different elements of the credit cards so that you know what you're doing and how much you're paying. And when you sign up for those, don't pay now and pay in 6 months. I hope you understand that in 6 months, if you haven't paid, you're going to have a $500 or $1,000 added to your credit card because they were tracking interest. They just went on applying it, right? I needed you to understand that. And people sometimes don't because they've never bothered. So if you are into debt, you need to find that out. So if you're paying too much in interest, then you need to call your credit cards and renegotiate, because people don't even realize that sometimes you can call them and just renegotiate. You can get help because those interests are taking a lot of money out of your pocket. If you're paying 30% on interest, that means that for every $100 that you give them, $30 is going towards interest.
Yeah.
One of the exercise that I do with my undergraduate students is one question. I said, okay, let's say you went on vacation and then you spend $1,000 on your credit card. And now you're only paying the minimum payment of $20. Let's say your interest rate is like 19.99%. If you're only paying the minimum payment, how long will it take you to pay off this debt? And they are surprised to realize that it might take them 7 to 10 years.
Wow.
And they will almost as double. I say suddenly that vacation doesn't sound that great anymore, does it? But it's not that it's not that they want to do it, it's just that people are not aware because they are not looking and tracking, right? So again, to kind of summarize, so if you are finding yourself in debt as a young person, the first thing I want you to do is have a realistic look at where your money is going. Create a budget, list all the categories of money coming in and money going out. Be as detailed as possible so you have a clear, realistic look of where your money is going. Start setting priorities and decide what you're going to cut. You have no idea how empowering it is when we give instruction to our mind. If you just tell your mind, this month, I only want to spend $200 on going out with friends, suddenly your mind is aware and helping you accomplish that, because every time you go out with friends, you're like, okay, I spent $50 today, so I'm not going out for another week because I want to be able to spend $100 a week. Just because you have given the command. And that's what a budget helps you do. So create that realistic budget, follow through. And second, take a look at your credit cards and call your credit cards company, negotiate, and try to reduce the interest payments so that more of the money that you are paying is going towards your principal rather than towards interest, right?
Yeah.
So those are two very big and important steps that you can start taking.
Yeah, the step number 2 for me is something that resonates because I remember being in my late 20s into early 30s, and I was very nervous to look at the credit card statements. I wasn't spending thousands and thousands, but still, like, I knew that whatever I was bringing in for income and whatever I was spending were real close every month. And so I was just super nervous. And, of course, I opened them and I read them. This is when we still would get paper statements.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can make it through. And of course I did. I made it through now, like 20, 25 years later. But yeah, the fear of just looking at what you're spending, because it all comes at once. It's not like, $5 here, $10 there, $30 there. It's all like $1,000 all at one time. People are really nervous about looking at their statements, or actually I was really nervous about looking at my statements. And that can really be paralyzing for some people. So I think people do have to become comfortable with talking about finances and become intimate with their own finances in order to move past the fear and to be able to budget and do the things that you were describing.
It's the brutal honesty with yourself about what your spending is. And I mean, no one likes to do that. I mean, here in Miami, you go out, you can't leave the house in Miami without spending, $100 easily. And that's not including cocktails. But I mean, a drink in most places around here costs you between $25 and $30. For a 1 ounce pour of alcohol. I actually know someone who does not drink, but she'll drink at home or with friends at home. But when we go out to eat, she'll have one drink and that's it. Because she's like, I'm not spending that money.
Yeah.
And I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. And part of it is like, what kind of life do you want? Like, I mean, Dr. Sandrine, you were talking about the choices that people have to make, but it's also in the larger sense, we all want a good life. And so I think it's all a matter of like, what does that mean for you? I mean, it doesn't have to be what this person over here or that person over there is doing. You don't have to compare to have a good life. You can create whatever good life you want, given the amount that you have and given the budget that you create. Like two people with making the same amount of money with the same budgets could have totally different ideas about what a good life is.
Yes.
And they can still achieve having a good life, a comfortable life, a fulfilling life, just by spending and saving differently. So
yeah, and I love that both of you are saying that, because a myth that people have about budgeting is that budgeting is limiting, when it's actually the opposite. Budgeting is empowering because it puts you in control. You are the architect of your life. And with a budget, you are exactly designing the life that you want. You are saying, traveling is important to me, but going out every night is less important to me. So I'm going to choose to save my money for traveling, and I'm going to go out less. because that's less important to me. You are saying buying Christmas gifts to my family is more important to me than going on 5 trips a year. So I'm only going to go on 2 trips a year so that I can save some of that money and just spoil everybody at Christmas. That's what budgeting allows you to do. It empowers you, like you said, to design the life that you want. And you are doing it from a place of power and control and ownership. You are being proactive about it instead of being reactive and always running after the last dime, because you don't know what is happening, but your money is always disappearing on you.
I think that it's funny you say that. It's very challenging now. I mean, I can speak for myself. Then I grew up in the non-social media time, so I didn't have to constantly have it in my face. Someone going to these beautiful trips, these beautiful locations, or having these amazing meals, and I didn't have FOMO because you'd hear a story from someone about where they did or where they went, but it wasn't constantly in your face. And I understand now for people, especially, young people trying to get into the workforce and trying to build their future, it must be very challenging constantly having that, that sort of,
Yes.
we're going to Bali, we're going here, we're doing this, we're living this glamorous life. And you see the videos and you're thinking, I want that. Not knowing a lot of times these people probably living at home with their parents still. They're probably broke, but they probably have things that you're not aware of. They huge credit card debt, but they don't tell you that part of the story.
Exactly. You want that, but you might want their debt. You don't want their debt either.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is very challenging for young people having all that in your face. And sometimes, yes, young people don't know how to react to it. And at the risk of repeating myself, that's when I tell them that's exactly why you need to be clear on what matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when your friends are doing certain things, sometimes you don't know how to respond because you haven't taken the time to think about whether you actually care about it or not. You haven't taken the time to make a decision about what you want to do. So you don't know what to say. But if you have taken the time to think about it and somebody's like, oh, we're going to Bali this week, you're like, well, you guys have fun. I've chosen that I want to spend more time with my grandmother. And I want to do this amazing thing for her because it's gonna, just blow her mind. And that's where my money is going. And because of that, I'm choosing not to go to Bali. Then suddenly I feel like your friends envy you because you sound like somebody who knows what they want in life and are going after what matters to them, right? Instead of being like, oh my God, I wish I could go to Bali. No, you really don't want to go to Bali. You just haven't thought about why you don't want to go to Bali because you haven't taken the time to think about your priorities, right? And coming back again to the first definition of budgeting that I said, it's about making sure that you use your money for what matters to you. You just have to take the time to sit down and figure out what those really are instead of just being reactive to what is being thrown out to you on social media. And that will give you a powerful response to your friends, which may actually make them envy you because suddenly you feel like a person on a mission.
Yeah.
That's why I keep my fine ass at home sometimes.
One thing I'll just add, just to sort of close off the conversation, is this. I think this conversation about budgeting and money belongs as part of a bigger conversation around wealth. So
Yes.
wealth is the dollars and cents that we earn and spend, but it's also your health. It's the time you spend with family and friends. It's the quality of your life. Wealth is a variety of things. It's not just about currency. So yes, and I think I'm just sort of pulling over what you're saying, Dr. Sandrine, in terms of, yes, you could choose to go on this trip to Bali, or you could choose to spend time with your grandmother. Which one is more important? And how does each one enrich your life and contribute to your overall wealth in terms of your social wealth or your other wealth? So.
Yes. And credit card debt and poor finances are the number one stressor. They are also some of the number one causes of divorce. So when you are putting money, you're going into debt to do things that you don't necessarily need, you're not really enjoying that trip. You're not really taking full advantage of it because you are so stressed about your finances, you're just pretending to have fun. And whatever well-being you thought you got from there, when you come back, it's going to be undone by all the collectors that are calling you and asking you to pay, right? So why do you want to put yourself in that situation? Right? So if you just take a minute and you care about your health, like, why do you want to spend $10,000 that you don't have on a yoga retreat for well-being? It makes no sense. It's like putting your medicine into poison before swallowing it. Like, if you really want to be well, how about you don't spend that $10,000 that you don't have? Your wealth, your blood pressure, your mindset will be so grateful. You probably won't need the yoga retreat anyway, right? And you can organize a yoga retreat in your backyard, at your public parks, with your friend, make it a potluck and something. And mentally, you will be so much better. Because we want to go to a yoga retreat. But if you think about, why do you want to go to a yoga retreat? Because you want to connect with people, you want to exercise, and you want to relax. Not spending money that you don't have will have a longer way towards that. And having a no-cost version of that, by bonding with community, by bonding with your friends, will actually further that. You will have so much more benefits from doing that than spending money that you don't have to go to an exotic location where you don't belong, right? Trying to achieve something you can get in your own backyard with no money spent.
They say money's the root of all evil, but I guess a good budget will be the cure.
Yes, I love that.
Well, Dr. Sandrine, thank you very, very much. I want to be respectful of your time. We appreciate it. Derek, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Sandrine. We appreciate your time and your being here and your knowledge. We really appreciate it. We believe the audience will too. And audience, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send us your questions or comments on whatever platform you are listening or watching us on. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next episode of Things They Don't Teach Us podcast. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.